I think that what we're going to see first is a European exchange that will mint USDM as a co-issuer in Europe. That's what we're looking for specifically. We want to make sure that we have a licensed party in Europe.
What's up, Beta Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, I have a special sit down with Dr. Lars Brunjes, the CTO for the Genius Yield protocol, as well as Matthew Plomin, the CEO and president of the USDM stablecoin launched by Mehen. Now, we're going to be diving into their recent partnership, where we're now going to see the USDM stablecoin being listed as an asset to be traded on the Genius Yield DEX. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring up today's guest. First and foremost, I've got Dr. Lars Brunjes. Good morning, doctor. How are you?
Hi, Farid. I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am great. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me for today's chat. Next, we've got Matthew Plomin, CEO and president of USDM. You guys have just launched here. Matt, I know that you're probably well worn down, but congrats to you. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, I hope the bags under my eyes aren't too bad this morning, but it's been a fun week. We launched on we did our first live mainnet mint on Saturday, and now it's been about a week since we actually came into the marketplace and have been trading live on the different exchanges. Yeah.
First and foremost, you look amazing. You sound amazing. And I just saw you guys have just crossed over the 100,000 mark when it comes for USDM minted. So very nice timing. I think you guys are off to an extremely great start. And we're going to be diving into just that, USDM and the partnership here with Genius Yield. Now, I want to give it over to Dr. Lars for just a brief elevator pitch for anybody who hasn't heard of Genius Yield. Could you maybe explain to us what that is?
Yes, so Genius Yield is first and foremost a DEX, decentralized exchange on Cardano. And of course, there are other DEXs as well. But I mean, what distinguishes us is that first, we are an order book DEX. So we are much closer to how centralized exchanges work than these MA DEXs that you are used to from Ethereum, for example. And we also try to be to really embrace the UTXO model. So being an order book DEX is a part of that. And UTXO model, of course, is the model that Cardano uses. So we feel that it's not good enough to basically copy concepts from Ethereum over to Cardano. That may work, but it's sort of forced. So we try to really embrace the model and push it to its full potential.
Thank you for the introduction. For anybody who hasn't heard about Genius Yield for the first time, I'll leave the official link to their platform down below. They've just gone live on the mainnet back in December of 2023, and they're continuing to gain more market maker bots, adding liquidity to their protocol. Next, we've got Matthew Plomin. Can you give us a brief rundown surrounding USDM and exactly what it's bringing to Cardano?
Sure. I'm Matt Plomin. USDM is a fiat-backed stablecoin launched on Cardano. It's a Cardano native asset, so it trades and is composable like any of the other Cardano tokens that you would see on the DEXs and in the other DeFi protocols. And so you can build on it with the consistency that you would build on it with any other token. The fiat-backed stablecoin is launching. Started in 17 states. And we're expanding from there. But basically, it's like a USDC or a USDT, except it's built from the ground up on Cardano. The team is drawn from the community. We have a few stake pool operators, a few like notable blockchain developers, and a bunch of community members that have just kind of gotten together to make this a reality. And we launched last week, and we're ready to go into the next end of March, end of April, or end of March into April, and hopefully be live in a lot of different places in the next month.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, congrats to you and the team. I know that this was highly anticipated here, and you guys seem to be off to an extremely solid start. For anybody who isn't aware, some of the potential benefits when it comes to USDM, right? You guys have really lowered the barrier for entry for retail. Right now, I don't believe that that's live yet, but it should hopefully be coming online soon, giving anybody the ability to begin minting USDM and bringing that on chain. You guys have also partnered up with C3, a Cardano-based Oracle here, to verify the third-party reserves, just to make sure that there's never any more USDM minted on-chain than in the reserves. Now, let's jump into the focus of today's call now that we've got the introductions out of the way, which is the fact that we now have a partnership between USDM or Mehen and Genius Yield. This was just announced on the official Genius Yield Twitter, and I'll maybe turn it over to Dr. Lars to kind of highlight, what does this partnership entail, and what is the goal of partnering and adopting USDM, the stablecoin, on the Genius Yield Orderbook style DEX?
Yes. So, I mean, first and foremost, it entails that we list USDM on our exchange. So I think since a couple of days, you can now swap USDM against ADA on our exchange. But then we also want to provide some liquidity, and we also want to run MM bots. And I believe Matt also wants to run their own bots on our exchange to provide liquidity. So that's and of course it's great. I mean, I think it's great for the community to have access to a stable coin, and of course also good for us that I mean that we are the first or amongst the first that have that on offer. So I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We saw, I think, a huge rush with Vive Finance stepping forward, creating a liquidity pool. Genius Yield, of course, stepping up and providing the opportunity to list USDM. We saw MinSwap jump in there as well. And then most recently, we, I believe, saw Wing Riders adopting USDM as well. Matt, can you maybe kind of give us your intent, your reasoning, and your logic as to why you see some benefit being listed on the Genius Yield DEX?
Well, any of the market book order book DEX like Genius Yield have an advantage when it comes to capital. So you can buy USDM for $1 on the platform, and then if you were to put it into the ecosystem and seed a liquidity pool in an AMM DEX, then you would need to put in $1 worth of ADA on the other side of it. Whereas in an order book DEX like Genius Yield has, you can simply just list it for $1 of ADA and have people then buy it from you there. You would then be able to take that capital and use it in whatever way you see fit, rather than trying to pair both of them together. And so it's more like you would consider a traditional stock exchange or a traditional capital markets activity, where you take a position and you then sell it. Instead of having to fund both sides of a liquidity pool, you actually just have to fund really one side. So if you're interested in buying USDM, you can go and buy it at the Genius Yield DEX. You can buy it at the other places too, but Genius Yield's a great DEX to start with. And then if you have the ability to mint USDM, if you're in one of the 17 states that we are operating in, then you can mint USDM and then sell it onto the DEX if you see an opportunity to sell it for your advantage.
I appreciate you mentioning a couple of those benefits. Over the course of the first, I would say maybe day or two, we saw people trading USDM for, I think, 3 almost to 5 ADA, right? Which didn't necessarily make sense. And I think that was one of the drawbacks that you kind of touched on there for these AMM style protocols, whereas with an order book, you're able to actually list it for that $1 in order to make sure that you're receiving an equal value, right? So from the buyer's perspective, you wouldn't be overpaying for USDM. Now, I want to maybe turn it back over to Dr. Lars real quick. There are some incentives when it comes to Genius Yield. Do you mind maybe kind of touching on what those are and how the community can kind of earn a little bit more by trading USDM right now on the Gens DEX?
Sure. I mean, some weeks ago, I think in the middle of January, we started this Yield Accelerator program, where each trade on our DEX is, I mean, in addition to the great experience of trading on our DEX, it's additionally rewarded with gens. So every week we set aside 50,000 gens, and then we distribute them amongst traders. So it's roughly, I mean, the rules are somewhat complicated, but it's roughly proportional to trading volume. And so now, as a special celebration of this USDM partnership and launch, for some limited time, we will basically increase the weight of trades in USDM by 3. So basically, your rewards will be tripled in comparison to doing the same trade volume in another currency. So that's
nice.
like a perk to celebrate this.
Nicely put, and I appreciate that. I have covered the accelerated yield program in prior videos. I'll go and leave the links to those down below for anybody who's interested in just finding out more about that. Let's maybe kind of talk about the market maker bots and expected liquidity. So, Matt, I believe you guys will be spinning up a market maker bot. can you maybe give us any sort of insight surrounding how much liquidity we can expect coming to the Genius Yield DEX? Obviously, right now, again, you guys have just crossed over the 100,000 mark, but where could we expect this going, 5, 6, 7 months down the line?
Well, I mean, your lips to God's ears will be in the millions, but the team. So let me make a couple of distinctions. So the company itself can only mint and sell and redeem and cash out the USDM token. We're not able to make markets. We're not able to make liquidity. We're not able to take our own capital and provide liquidity and then sell it into the market, mostly because we as a company, as a regulated entity, need to know everybody that we do business with. And if we were to ever step out into the open decentralized marketplace, then we would be doing transactions with unknown parties. And that would be in violation of our regulatory remit. So we're not going to be doing that as a team, but some individuals that we know are going to be involved in making a couple of these bots that will help with the AMM trading and then seeding liquidity on their own. So because a small community, you kind of know everybody, but we're confident that there will be a number of people in the Genius Yield community who are interested in making these bots, maintaining them, and then providing the peg stability and the liquidity into the marketplace that people need. I mean, right now, when you see the stablecoin trading for, up of $1.10, they don't think it's been far beyond $1.10 in the automated market maker dexes. There's a good opportunity then. That's a signal that Cardano needs more USDM. And so we're interested in finding ways to get that to people and working with partners to execute on that.
And I'll be coming back to you in just a second to kind of talk about the onboarding process, et cetera, here, Matt. But I want to turn it back over to Dr. Lars. Could you maybe explain for us who are not so technical, what are the benefits to actually running an MMB, and why would somebody want to do that in order to support the Genius Yield DEX?
Well, I mean, maybe I can answer the last part first. So this is our way of, what is like putting money into a liquidity pool on AMM DEX is, running an MMB bot on Genius Yield. So that's like the equivalent. So in order to provide liquidity, you have to run such a bot. And so that's why it's important for us. But of course, it's, like market making in traditional finance, it is, of course, something that can potentially be very lucrative. Of course, it can potentially also be risky. It's like speculative, of course, it depends on your strategy. But there's a potential to make quite a lot of money with that. So that's why we hope that people will be interested. And we are looking forward in particular to see like various different strategies, because if there's a variety of trading strategies, that also provides more stability, of course, for everything, and brings in more liquidity.
I appreciate that. I do want to quickly go ahead and just plug in a webinar that yourself presented to the community not too long ago about how to actually set up and run an MMB. I'll leave the link to that down below for anybody who's interested in providing and basically being a market maker for the Genius Yield Orderbook style DEX. At this point, we've kind of covered the sort of main topic here of today's video, which is dealing with the partnership, exactly what that entails, and your guys' perspectives as to the relationship moving forward. I want to maybe focus a little bit here now on USDM. So I've got a couple of questions lined up for Matt here, and then we're going to jump into some of the community questions. So Matt, first and foremost, can you maybe just kind of give us the feedback that you've heard from some of the businesses and institutional investors that have gone through the entire minting process so far?
Yeah, we've had some good feedback. We've had some constructive criticism, I would consider, that, and things that we know that are kind of glitchy with the platform. One of the things is we geolocate every user. So when you log on to the platform, when you pull up the first page of the web app, then your geolocation is checked, and we make sure that you're within one of those 17 states that we mint and burn to from and to. And then so what happens is, if you're not in one of those states, the site doesn't properly load intentionally. We remove a lot of functionality from the website. The problem with that is, some people, like I'm in Connecticut, which is one of our eligible states, and from time to time, the geofence will think I'm in New York. And that's just a matter because I live near New York. And because of the technology, we're a little unable to really secure that in. I think we're definitely being more conservative than we than we need to be with that to geofence. The other thing is we block all VPNs. So if you're in a VPN, even if you're located in a place, or even if you're into a server, the VPN into a server that's in one of the places where we can mint, most likely that VPN connection will be on a list of blacklisted servers that we block in order to make sure that you're not faking your location and moving it into a place that you should know that we are not allowed to operate in. So the thoughts are those kinds of things need to be worked out still. But as it comes to the ability to mint, the ability to burn, the ability to send in dollars, it's all a very simple process. And we're going to actually make that a whole lot better. One of the things is right now everybody has to send in wire transfers. We're going to come up with a couple of different payment options for people in the future that they can use to get USDM. That'll be a whole lot more secure and a whole lot better for folks who have been operating in Web3 for a long time. So that's number one. And number two is I think there still is a little bit of trepidation as to how much we need to mint, how much is required if you're going to be an institutional minter. And I think that what we're telling people is, test it at first, send us in small trades. We had, one mint yesterday was $100, and that was a test with more to follow. And one of the things we're trying to do during this, call it live alpha test, is make sure that we aren't overwhelmed operationally with users that come to mint and have to handhold a lot of people through the process and then go through the process of minting, confirming with compliance, back and forth with the different systems. We think we know how it's going to operate live, but then once you go live, you don't want to mess it up on the blockchain scenario where you're doing things on chain that you can't roll back. You're doing things that are, that you think are very good, but you want to make sure that you're still testing in this live environment. So while we test with a limited number of parties, I think that we still have bandwidth for more, but we're in a good place right now when it comes to how much these parties are going to mint and how much they're providing to the chain. So that's kind of the positives and the negatives. It all works very well when you're in the right location. If you're not in the right location, or if our system is locating you improperly, then it will look very, very clunky and bad. So that's kind of the good and bad of it.
Thank you for the honesty and just being straightforward there, right?
People are going to find out sooner or later that it's not something we can hide. It's just that's what it is. We know it, and we're working on it.
Right. And I think that's the best way to go about it, just to own it, get it out there and let people know, hey, we will get this better. But I do tend to agree that regulation is important, right? So you definitely don't want to cut corners. I'd much rather you guys be too tight than too loose in allowing people to mint and not verifying VPN connections when you technically should be. So again, kudos to you guys for taking the right approach, even though it may not necessarily be the easiest or the simplest approach to implement right away. You obviously have a lot more insight into the pipeline as to how many people have signed up for KYB or KYC if they're just a regular institutional investor. Could you give us an idea of, how many people are in the process right now of getting the ability to mint USDM? And the reason why I ask is because I've had you on the channel here multiple times. In times past, we've talked about the initial liquidity at launch. And I think for a lot of the community, they were expecting for millions to come out literally on March 16th. Where that was a Friday, people hadn't actually gone through the KYC and the KYB process. And so in one of my videos, I highlighted this is going to take time. This is an organic project, getting their feet off of the ground for the first time. It's not, for example, like some of these other competitors that already have launched on 7 or 8 chains with $1 billion worth of liquidity that already exists. So my response was, we've got to be patient, and the community understands, but can you maybe give us an idea as to how long it would take until we're able to see some of these larger numbers, given the pipeline right now? Again, understanding that retail isn't in the picture just yet.
I haven't looked actually at the KYC, at the number of people who have gone through the onboarding process, through that kind of KYC verification on our back end. I haven't looked at that in a couple of days. When I looked at it a few days ago, I think it was a few dozen that were up there. I wouldn't be surprised if we're over 50 individual users who have come in to mint as institutions. The pipeline is good. Even tokens that are on other chains that have billions of dollars of market cap, it's not like all of that market cap comes onto Cardano. That token needs to have a reason for being on Cardano. It needs to be integrated with the ecosystem. People in the ecosystem need to have built around it, need to be ready for it. They need to make need to make some reasons for having it rather than just having and holding a stablecoin. And so that's why we're grateful for the partnership with Genius Yield. We're grateful for the partnership with the other DeFi protocols to make use of the token in Cardano. So it'll be a matter of organically building the liquidity. And I think that that's a whole lot more sustainable too than having one party just come in big splash into the ecosystem. I think when you genuinely build for the community, you understand if you have a product market fit very quickly. You understand if your offering is appealing to the people who are using it, and you'll be able to adjust yourself on the fly and make sure that you've got the right product into the marketplace at the right time. So from our perspective, we're glad that we're able to get 6 figures of minting out of the first week. That was a huge milestone that we were kind of considering to be a stretch goal. And as we go into the next week, we have additional parties that are coming online that would be able to mint additional. And we've seen test trades this week, and we'll see maybe as much or more come online next week. So just kind of viewing into our roadmap or into our kind of our plan, what we've seen in the pipeline. The other thing to think about is exchanges are interested in this now. It was funny. We launched on Saturday. We got some industry press, and then on Monday morning, my email, the team's emails, were just blowing up with all kinds of things, from media inquiries to exchange inquiries. Some of them were fake, but a lot of them were genuine. And we're really working our way through that right now to understand which of these exchanges would be beneficial partners for us and which of them are just kind of looking for a payday. And there's a lot of that happens in crypto, but I think you can, if you've been here around for a little while, you'll understand and know the difference between them.
So I just want to reiterate here that we may see a potential listing of USDM on a centralized exchange. Is that correct?
I think that what we're going to see first is a European exchange that will mint USDM as a co-issuer in Europe. That's what we're looking for specifically. We want to make sure that we have a licensed party in Europe. As we were kind of planning out our roadmap a year ago, trying to figure out how to be regulatory compliant in all 50 states, and then looking out to the global audience, there are places where you definitely need a license to operate. You need a license to operate in Europe. You need a license to operate in the UK. You need a license to operate in a few places in Asia. And you need to be specifically locally licensed there with a local presence. And it would be much quicker for us to do that with a partner. And we need to be a little careful about who we partner with, but we want to make sure that they're insistent on building a Cardano native asset marketplace on their blockchain, and then, and then making a natural use for that liquidity in their local jurisdiction. So I think that will be the first thing that you see out of USDM is a token listing on, or not even a listing, but like a partnership to issue USDM within one of those regulated jurisdictions.
Thank you, Matt. I've got 2 more questions, and then Dr. Lars, we're coming your way for some community questions here. The next thing for USDM is just retail, right? So again, as of right now, it's businesses and institutional investors. How are things going with the retail side of things? Because I think that could potentially be a huge floodgate for people coming in as well, right? In my prior videos talking about stablecoins, there's been a lot of people who are very vocal about taking the homegrown route, and they've been waiting patiently to kind of be able to mint on their own. So I think that we'll probably see just as much volume coming in from retail as we have seen so far from institutional adoption. So can you give us an update surrounding when we could see that feature coming online?
That will probably be, here it is. Today's March 23rd. We will probably have that ready either the second week of April-ish, like give us to April plus. And that will be like what we're looking at. Once we've ironed out all of the little demons that can creep up in the code, then I think we'll be operationally ready to go live for retail. And we want to make sure that we have all of these corner cases closed before we end up moving into that kind of higher volume thing. Additionally, we need to make sure that our banking partners are also comfortable with those volumes too, because what we found is some of these larger transactions that we get from the institutional mentors, they get incredible amount of scrutiny when those dollars hit our account, and they want to be able to make sure that they know where that's coming from, what the source of funds was, and those types of things. So we need to go through that process and have them understand that as we go, and have them better understand our retail screening process And so we'll say like individuals, we'll map them right into our back end. So there's a lot we can do to get that institutional integration in place, and it's just going to take a little bit of tweaking the existing system and then tying it in with our other partners. But that should be nice when it comes on board. It'll be a very good user experience for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's, again, one of the key pieces that a lot of people have been waiting on. The very last thing I want to just maybe ask you very quickly, Matt, is what's next, right? So USDM, if I'm not mistaken, has been built in such a way that not only can it launch the US dollar fiat-backed stablecoin, but that we could potentially see other types of stables coming and being supported by the Mehen team. So could we see additional fiat currencies coming from Mehen? What are your thoughts? And maybe just what is the focus for the team going out into 2024?
We haven't really thought about other currencies, and it's not top of mind for us right now. But if we were able to get one of these partnerships with a European centralized exchange, we'd be able to think about that very seriously. I think a lot of their customers have dollar accounts, but they also have euro accounts. And if we can make a euro stable, particularly for use in Europe, that would be a very appealing product for a lot of people. And the protocol wouldn't need to change very much at all. We would just need to make sure that we reference a different bank account that's denominated in a different currency, and really come up with a new token registration and a new policy ID and all that stuff. We'd have to launch the Mehen. So there's the USDM stablecoin, which is launched using the Mehen protocol, and the Mehen protocol is a set of smart contracts. And every time that the Mehen protocol is redeployed, it could be using the same sort of structure where the independent oracle feeds a value to the blockchain, then that value is used in a second, in with the transaction to make sure that the transaction doesn't ever mint more USDM or more EURM than is coming off of the oracle feed. So those things are kind of need to balance out, and the entire system is called the Mehen protocol. So we'll launch a new instance of the Mehen protocol that works the same way as the USD one, but only referencing euro. So it would not be incredibly difficult to do that on the blockchain side. The difficult part comes on the regulated side and on the bank side. So we need to make sure we have those right partners set up in that case. And so we'll say it's a matter of time until we can get euro in. I think what you'll probably see from us first is euro deposits into the USDM protocol at a certain swap rate. So we have a bank that's in place right now to do that for us, and then we'll have that functionality, kind of later down the road. Consider it like it's like a late April, early May target for putting that stuff in. But so if you want a dollar stable, you can use that. If you want a euro stable, then we'll figure that out a little later on.
You kind of actually took the words out of my mouth there towards the very end. I was thinking about if people would have the ability to potentially still continue depositing dollars, given the fact that you guys have already kind of gotten that regulatory side of things ironed out, but then actually mint some other type of fiat coin based off of a conversion rate, given the amount that they've deposited, right? So again, it sounds like you guys are kind of thinking through that, and we'll probably get a little bit more clarity when it comes to those types of things in the near future, given the fact that you guys are focusing right now on the US dollar and what you guys have actually launched. So Matt, I'll give you a second to take a break here. Dr. Lars, it's your turn on the hot seat. So we've got a couple of questions coming in here from the community that I want to go ahead and just quickly pose to you. So the first is coming in here surrounding MMBs, stating or asking, can market maker bots be configured in a way that Genius Yield can get the maximum share of the DexHunter trades?
Well, I mean, I assume that refers to the MMBs that we ourselves run, because I mean, other people probably wouldn't have much interest in helping us. I mean, it's all open. I mean, we are very proud that everything is completely decentralized and open. So that, I mean, the point is everybody can run these MMBs. I mean, we run some, but everybody can, and some people do. And yeah, I doubt that they would have an interest in that. But I mean, as far as we are concerned, yes. And of course, we try to be as, I mean, and obviously we don't want to lose money with our MMBs, but we want to be as competitive as possible with prices. So once the DexHunter integration is active, that we I mean, we are very confident that we will be very competitive. So short answer, yes.
Thank you. The next question is surrounding the multi-fill feature. So you guys have teased out a multi-fill feature to allow for one order to be filled by multiple cells to make up that entire order. When can we expect for the launch of the market order multi-fills?
Very, very soon. So in principle, everything is done. It's already, not only is it implemented, it's already deployed. There's just a switch we have to throw. And I think right now we asked some of our testers from the community to test it thoroughly last week. So provided they don't find any big problem at the moment, everything is looking good, then probably next week, early next week.
Thank you. Moving into the third question. This is surrounding the MMB. So we talked about how you had a webinar and the benefits that the MMBs pose. To be fully fair, it is a little bit technical. For anybody who doesn't have a technical background, could we expect a easy to deploy version of these MMBs? Because I think the lower the barrier to creating and maintaining an MMB, the more we're going to see coming online.
Right. And first of all, I fully agree with you, of course, and we are obviously aware of that. I mean, one should, of course, on the other hand, one should say it will never be as easy as it is on MMA exchange. I mean, there you put your liquidity there once and then you forget about it. But that's because of how these things work. And I wouldn't say it's not necessarily only a good thing. I mean, it's easy, but the potential gains are also not as high because a lot of liquidity is just sitting there not working for you. So I mean, if you get it right, then your potential profit is much higher with an MMB. But that also requires some sort of expertise. I mean, it's like investing or market making in a traditional exchange. I mean, if you have no clue whatsoever about finance, then probably it's not for you. But that being said, I mean, the things that can be simplified, we are working very hard on actually simplifying them. So this webinar you mentioned, I mean, they are demonstrated, I mean, our bots, the state they are in right now. So in particular, these strategies are written in Haskell. So you don't necessarily need to program Haskell. You can also, there's configurations, so you can set some parameters. So that's relatively easy, but that's of course also not very powerful because you still have to follow the basic strategy. So what people actually want to do is implement their own strategies. And demanding that they do that in Haskell is of course quite a high bar. And we are obviously aware of that. So we have been working quite hard and intensely over the last weeks. So we are very close to actually in principle already ready, but we haven't released it yet, so-called Market Maker Bot API. So instead, which basically means that the bot is a server with simple endpoints like place an order at this price, cancel that order, things like that, just HTTP endpoint. So that means as soon as that is published, people can write their bot strategies in whatever programming language they like Python or JavaScript. Which makes it hopefully much easier already. And we are also looking at, there are like platforms for other DEXs or SEXs even that where it's relatively easy to basically click a bot together. So we're also looking into integrating some of these existing systems into ours so that maybe strategies that already exist will be compatible with our bot. So we're working under high pressure on that, and probably things will improve very soon. And our midterm vision is that we have something like a UI where you like a marketplace for strategies where people can showcase their strategies, their dashboards where you can compare them, and then others can pick somebody else's strategy, maybe configure it and relatively easy run it without having to program at all, maybe. So that's the goal. But right now, concretely, very, very soon, we will at least have this API that allows you to use Python or JavaScript and not necessarily Haskell. So I hope that's already a step in the right direction and will make it much easier.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it is. The very last question I want to pose to you from the community is, when can we expect to get the candlestick charts on the actual platform?
Right. We have looked into that, and technically, I think it's easy. There are libraries for that, so when we have the data, so in principle, you can just plug it in. The problem is, because we are completely decentralized, there are certain restrictions that apply to like a centralized exchange, order book exchanges that don't apply to us. One of them, for example, is this best price guarantee. I mean, in its traditional exchange, you can't just fill an arbitrary order. You always have to pick the one with the best price. So they're like in a queue and you don't have access to all the orders in the order book, only like at the edge of the price. And that's not true for us because, I mean, there's no global authority that could enforce something like that, which means that people can place orders at outrageous prices for whatever reason. I mean, may they make a mistake, may they want to manipulate prices, whatever. So that means we have these like weird prices. I mean, that are hundreds of percent above the usual. And that means that candlesticks, if you just give them this data, they just look shit. So it's because you have these outliers. And on the other hand, of course, I mean, obviously we don't want to censor anything. So it's a bit tricky. I mean, we have to sort of clean up the data to make the candlestick charts look okay. But on the other hand, we obviously don't want to lie about reality. So there's this certain conflict to get that sorted out. But in principle, I mean, we are working on that and we have lots of ideas, various ideas how to do outlier detection, or maybe instead of basing it on trades, instead basing it on the order book, then you could see, I mean, the cheapest price. So there are various options. We are exploring them. So hopefully it won't be long until we have like nicer charts.
Thank you there. I appreciate you being straightforward and honest with that as well. I think that'll take you off of the hot seat, Dr. Larson. We're going to go ahead and bring Matt back up here just for a couple of questions, and then I'll turn it back over to the both of you for some closing thoughts and give you guys back, some time here on your weekend. So, Matt, I think you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but could you maybe kind of just reiterate and highlight some of the benefits and advantages of an order book style platform like Genius Yield adopting a stablecoin versus a potential AMM style protocol?
Sure. So there are a couple of different advantages. One of the advantages that we see as the stablecoin maker who is only issuing to a limited number of people versus a wide community that would like to have the stablecoin is if you're one of those minters, then you can just mint and then list directly on the DEX and have it be for a reasonable price for $1 worth of ADA. And then you can help to supply that liquidity into the ecosystem. And then that liquidity will hopefully make its way around to all of the users in the Cardano community who want to participate in the DeFi protocols and make really make the liquidity flow around the system a lot better. You can start, if you start at an order book DEX, then when you list your price for $1 of ADA, then you can get, you can know that trade will go through at a reasonable price versus having to supply both sides of the liquidity pool and have the price be determined sort of by this tug and pull of supply and demand. And like what you saw when we had the first liquidity pool that was put on for USDM, the price was $1, and when it started, and then it moved to $1.10, $1.20, $1.50, $2, $3. And there were probably some like whale games playing, or some people were having just kind of a hoot to try to get the price to pump up. And they don't think that they really cared about what the value they were getting for that price. They were just trying to play a game, except that's not ideal if you're a person who wants to get the supply into the ecosystem quickly. And so rather than having to take $1 of ADA and $1 of USDM and put them both on the DEX together, you would be able to just put the $1 of USDM on the DEX and then trade that for ADA. It'd be much more efficient for you when you're trying to mint USDM and then get it into the ecosystem.
I also like to take a second to highlight the fee difference too. I think with the smart order router approach that the Genius Yield team has taken, you do end up paying less fees than you would on a traditional AMM style protocol, which they use batches instead. So the last question I have for you here coming in from the community, Matt, is surrounding the, I don't want to say, is it offshore launch? Because again, you've launched in the United States, but when could we expect the support for everybody outside the US, specifically the fiat on-ramp and off-ramp in Europe?
Well, in Europe, it'll be dependent on those centralized exchange licensed parties. you'd have to have a license to operate in Europe within the retail sector or within institutional sector. There's the MiCA regulations are still fairly new and there hasn't been any case law built, but we don't want to be the ones that get sued and have to go and defend ourselves in court and make that case law. So we're going to operate well within the boundaries of what we expect the law to be and what we expect to be enforced. So that's why we're looking for licensed partners in the EU who can have the proper e-money licenses that can then operate and passport those throughout their jurisdiction. So that'll come from from somebody else, but that'll come from a partnership that we're developing.
Awesome. I think that's going to take us through quite a bit there. I'd love to have the both of you guys here on in a couple of months to just kind of maybe reflect and get some updates as to how, number one, the partnership is going with, and number two, how each of you individually are doing. So that said, I'll maybe turn it back over to Dr. Lars. Anything else that you want to share here with the community when it comes to the partnership with USDM or Mehen, or just some closing thoughts surrounding Genius Yield?
I just invite everyone to trade on Genius Yield. I think we have really competitive prices, and it's really nice. And now it's even nicer since you can get a stablecoin there. So I encourage everybody. And our yield accelerator program. There are, as I said, 50,000 gens a week. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So it's attractive. So I really invite everyone to come and have a look.
Thank you, and nicely said. And I do want to quickly add too, for anybody who's taking gens, you will be earning 20% of the protocol revenue. So that's another benefit to trading on that platform. Matt, any closing thoughts surrounding the Genius Yield partnership or USDM that you want the community to know?
We're really excited to have all of the different DEXs. So the support from Genius Yield has been remarkable. I think the team has been very engaging. We'd like to work more closely with everybody in the ecosystem. I think that the reason for having a fiat-backed stablecoin is really to empower all of those DeFi protocols that are operating on Cardano. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to be the catalyst, be the catalyst for growth on the other protocols. So I think that if that were to happen, then I think that everybody would be much better off. I think Cardano as a blockchain would be much more attractive. And I think that ADA as a cryptocurrency would be more attractive as well as that functionality gets built out. And one of the things that I'm really proud of the Cardano community for doing is in the past 2 years during this bear market, they've been really building and working together. There have been some competitive products launched, but even then they build and they make each other stronger. There's a V2, a V3, there's new things coming out from various pieces of the Cardano ecosystem that then build on top of each other. And it speaks to the strength of the blockchain architecture. I think that Cardano's way of making native tokens, making them so composable, making that standard so easy to build on has been a real big game changer for Cardano DeFi. It's kind of a sleeping giant right now. And I think once people figure out that all these things will start to work together, then we'll be able to really go somewhere with Cardano. And, like I said, we're going for number one, right? That's our goal.
Nicely said. I think there's a saying that a rising tide raises all ships. With the onboarding of USDM, we've already started to see not just ADA/USDM pairs coming out, but Cardano native tokens, for example, like WMT, being traded in parallel with USDM, right? So I think we're going to begin to see that become the norm for anybody who's holding a stable to swap that stable into a Cardano native asset, as opposed to ADA, which has kind of been the usual way to swap here on the ecosystem. So I think a brand new world of opportunities. And I want to take a moment here to quickly highlight a project as well, which is Iagon, which has mentioned that they're actually going to be minting USDM as well, right? So I would love to see more projects coming on board, taking that same approach and saying, hey, we're going to actually support Cardano builders and also go through the same process of minting, just like anybody as an institutional investor or retail investor would. So that'll bring us here to the end here for today's video. Again, we've got Matthew Plomin, CEO and founder here for the USDM or Mehen protocol. We've got Dr. Lars here bringing a technical heap of knowledge here when it comes to Genius Yield and input output. I want to thank you both here for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys enjoyed today's video and you just learned anything along along the way, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more coverage like this surrounding all the greatest builders here in Cardano, consider subscribing to the channel. And last but not least, if you have any questions surrounding USDM or Genius Yield, please leave them down below for Matt and Dr. Lars. And on that note, we'll see you all in the next video.